Welcome everybody to the Bhagavad-Gita class. Om Gana Timaranda Shah Gana Gana Salakaya Taksumli Tamyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhisam Sapi Tamyena Bhutile Swayam Rupa Karamayam Dadati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaisnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagvajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Stam Sajivam Savadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Para Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishamanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapya Surubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitana Bhavane Bhyo Vaishnave Bhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today we're reading from Bhagavad-Gita as it is. Reading from chapter 15, it'll be text 7. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, my Vamso Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha Manasasindriyani Prakriti Sanikasati. Word for word, Mama, my. Eva, certainly. Amsa, fragmental particle. Jivaloke, in the world of conditional life. Jiva Bhutaha, the conditioned living entity. Sanatana, eternal. Mana, with the mind. Sastani, the six. Indriyani, senses. Prakriti, immaterial nature. Stani, situated. Karsati is struggling hard. Translation and purports by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Srila Prabhupada. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they're struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. Please repeat. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. Purport. And it's a long purport. It's a very nice purport, actually. Very nice purport. In this verse, the identity of the living being is clearly given. The living entity is the fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord eternally. It is not that he assumes individuality in his conditional life and in his liberated state becomes one with the Supreme Lord. He is eternally fragmented. It is clearly said, Sanatanaha. According to the Vedic version, the Supreme Lord manifests and expands himself in innumerable expansions, of which the primary expansions are called Vishnu Tattva, and the secondary expansions are called the living entities. In other words, the Vishnu Tattva is the personal expansion, and the living entities are the separated expansions. By his personal expansion, he is manifested in various forms like Lord Rama, Nrsimhadev, Vishnu Murti, and all the predominating deities in the Vaikuntha planets. The separated expansions, the living entities, are eternally servitors. The personal expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the individual entities of the Godhead, are always present. Similarly, the separated expansions of living entities have their identities. As fragmental parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, the living entities also have fragmental portions of his qualities, of which independence is one. Every living entity, as an individual soul, has his personal individuality and a minute form of independence. By misuse of that independence, one becomes a conditioned soul, and by proper use of independence, he is always liberated. In either case, he is qualitatively eternal, as the Supreme Lord is. In his liberated state, he is freed from this material condition, and is under the engagement of transcendental service unto the Lord. In his conditioned life, he is dominated by the material modes of nature, and he forgets the transcendental loving service of the Lord. As a result, he has to struggle very hard to maintain his existence in the material world. The living entities, not only human beings and the cats and dogs, but even the greater controllers of the material world, Brahma, Lord Shiva, and even Vishnu, are all parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. They are all eternal, not temporary manifestations. The word karsati, struggling or grappling hard, is very significant. The conditioned soul is bound up, as though shackled by iron chains. He is bound up by the false ego, and the mind is the chief agent which is driving him in this material existence. When the mind is in the mode of goodness, his activities are good. When the mind is in the mode of passion, his activities are troublesome. And when the mind is in the mode of ignorance, he travels in the lower species of life. It is clear, however, in this verse that the conditioned soul is covered by the material body with the mind and the senses. And when he is liberated, this material covering perishes, but his spiritual body manifests itself in its individual capacity. The following information is there in the Madhyanayana Shruti. Savai Esha Brahmanishta Edam Sariram Martyam Atishvija Brahma Bisham Padya Brahmana Pashyati Brahmana Srinoti Brahma Navedyam Sarvam Anubhavati. It is stated here that when a living entity gives up this material embodiment and enters into the spiritual world, he revives his spiritual body. And in his spiritual body, he can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. He can hear and speak to him face to face. And he can understand the Supreme Personality as he is. From Smriti, also it is understood, Vaisanti Yastra Purusaha Sarve Vaikuntha Murtaya. In the spiritual planets, everyone lives in bodies featured like the Supreme Personality of Godheads. As far as body construction is concerned, there's no difference between the part and parcel living entities and the expansions of Vishnu Murti. In other words, at liberation, the living entity gets a spiritual body by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The words Mamaivamsa, fragmental parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, are also very significant. The fragmental portion of the Supreme Lord is not like some material broken part. We have already understood in the second chapter that the spirit cannot be cut into pieces. This fragment is not materially conceived. It's not like matter, which can be cut into pieces and joined together again. That conception is not applicable here because the Sanskrit word sanatana, eternal, is used. The fragmental portion is eternal. It is also stated in the beginning of the second chapter that in each and every individual body, the fragmental portion of the Supreme Lord is present. Dehosmin yata dehi. That fragmental portion, when liberated from the bodily entanglement, revives its original spiritual body in the spiritual sky in a spiritual planet and enjoys association with the Supreme Lord. It is, however, understood here that the living entity, being the fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, is qualitatively one with the Lord, just as the parts and parcels of gold are also gold. So I'll give you just an overview of this chapter, what's in this chapter. In verses 1 to 6, they talk about attaining liberation by detachment. And the metaphor is given of the upside-down banyan tree. And detachment is the axe, that's the weapon you use to cut down this attachment to the material world. The spiritual, the living entities are attached to this material world. And then in verses 7 through 11, and other than that, then 7 and 11 talk about our bondage and our transmigration. And then in verses 12 to 15, talks about how Krishna assists us in our material existence and our spiritual endeavors. And I came across this one sentence which I thought was very nice. It says, Krishna is our maintainer at the cosmic level as our source of light, sustenance, and the juice of life. And in verses text 16 through 18, it's the essence of the Vedanta. It's called the Tri Sloka Gita. And then in verses 19 to 20, to know Krishna means to know everything. So that's the end result of knowing the Vedas, the Vedanta. The end result is you get to know Krishna. Although, as stated before, in the Gita we read how some people get trapped by the flowery words of the Vedas instead of moving on, progressing in their understanding of what the Vedas are actually for. Although it's good that they follow, at least you have that they're following. They have to be following something. Otherwise, the ones who are not following are just like animals. So at least you have those who are following the Vedas. So hopefully if they progress, they'll come to the understanding what is their position or relationship to Krishna and what they're supposed to do in that particular relationship. And what is the goal of our relationship with Krishna. So I want to talk about some of the words that Prabhupada is using here. He's talking about the fragmental part. And as he says in the end of the chapter, it's not material. It doesn't mean like when we break something here, we break a china or a teacup, we try to glue the pieces together. And I looked it up in the World Dictionary, the material dictionary, and it says a piece broken off, incomplete piece. But in reference to this spiritual knowledge, that's not what it means. It means that we are eternally a part of Krishna, but we have our individuality. And as eternal parts and parcels, we're supposed to serve him and have loving exchanges. He says we are the Lord's eternal fragmental parts. And so also in this paragraph, he says that we, in this purport, that we have minute portions of his qualities. And we've heard the analogy of you take a drop of water out of the Atlantic Ocean, and the drop of water is us. We have whatever in that quality, whatever salty or whatever's in that small portion, we also have it. But Krishna is the whole ocean, and we're only small drop of the ocean, okay? And so he says, the Lord says, we're eternally his parts and parcels. And speaking to this fragmental, as the soul is defined in chapter 2, it says in text 23, we've read this a lot, so I'm just going to repeat what's in there. The descriptions of the soul, Krishna is talking to Arjuna, because Arjuna is having this quandary about killing his relatives. But Krishna is explaining to him about the soul. So in text 23, Nainam chandanti sastrani, Nainam dahati pavakaha, Na chainam kleta yantyapo, Na sosayati marutaha. The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. And in text 24, Achedyo yam adahyo yam, Akledyo sasya evacha, Niya sarvagatas danur achalo yam sanatanaha. This individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble, and can be neither burned or dried. He is everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. So, I want to just read something out of this chapter 2, 23 and 24 for you. It's nice to review, it's nice for me. I like to review so I can get that knowledge into my head. So 2:23. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says all kinds of weapons, swords, flame weapons, rain weapons, tornado weapons, etc., are unable to kill the spirit soul. This is text 23. It appears that there were many kinds of weapons made of earth, water, air, ether, etc., in addition to the modern weapons of fire. Even the nuclear weapons of the modern age are classified as fire weapons. But formerly, there were other weapons made of all different types of material elements. Fire weapons were counteracted by water weapons, which are now unknown to modern science. And also, one of the reasons that Prabhupada is making this point is due to the Mayavadi conception that we are one with the Supreme, which means that when we leave the body, the spirit soul leaves the body, we merge with the Supreme Soul, which is not true, but because of their experiences in material life and the traumas they went through, they don't want any personal relationships. They want to merge, but eventually, as it's said in the Bhagavad-Gita, they come back down because there's nothing to do. What do you do, So they have to come down to perform some activity, So it's said in the scriptures that they open hospitals or do some charity work or whatever, because as spirit souls, we're all active by nature. We cannot not do anything. This is kind of a side thought, but it also reminds me that when we are leaving the body, I've been with so many devotees who are leaving their body, And while they may appear unconscious, if we remember this, that the soul is always active, the soul is always hearing, it's always active. It may look from the outside that the person is unconscious, but the soul is there, and the soul never dies. So we should understand that if we see a devotee, we should still be chanting to them. We should still be, singing for them or doing kirtan for them. One experience I had was I was in Puerto Rico doing some service there, and the devotees went to the hospital to see a devotee who was leaving her body. We went to see her twice. The first time she was talkative and, she was talking to us, very cheery, and then the next time we went, she was unconscious. And the devotees were just talking, so I was suggesting, let us chant. And the minute she heard the mantra, even though she was unconscious, her arms were covered with the sheet, but the minute she heard the mantra, her hand went up, in victory. Oh yes, the devotees are here, they're chanting, I'm hearing the Maha Mantra. So we should always remember that the soul is never inactive, it's always active, and it can hear. The last thing that goes when they're leaving their body is the hearing. So they're always hearing. Also, so back to the point, I was talking about the Maya bodies, and Prabhupada is emphasizing this in the purport about us being separate individuals, although eternally part and parcel of Krishna. So in regards to that, in our individuality, let me go back to the chapter 15. Where were we? 15? 7. And he is saying it's not that he, the soul, assumes individuality in his conditional life, and in his liberated state becomes one with the Supreme Lord. So that's speaking to the impersonalist. His strong refutation of the Mayavad philosophy, we're always his part, his amsa, sanatana. Krishna says, my parts and parcels. So, as I said, we maintain our individuality, and we can see that in the pastimes and leelas of the Lord, of so many parts and parcels, spiritual souls who are, playing so many different roles in their relationship with Krishna. Also, even the trees and the flowers and the bees, and everything's conscious. So everyone is an individual. They're their own individual. And I also looked up in the dictionary the explanation for the word individuality, and it said, the principle of living one's life in one's own way. And I thought, wrong. It's like, nope, that's not that. We tried that. We've been trying that for lifetimes and millions of lifetimes. That's not it. We don't want to live our life in our own way. We want to live our life how Krishna wants us to live our life. And so the individuality spoken about here in this purport is our identity in the spiritual realm. We're living our spiritual life in Krishna's way, serving him eternally with love and devotion, and playing whatever our parts are in the spiritual world. So, and at the end of the purport, Prabhupada clearly says that fragmental portion, when liberated from the bodily entanglement, revives its original spiritual body in the spiritual sky, in a spiritual planet, and enjoys association with the Supreme Lord. So we are his forever servants, and we are here to help him enjoy. We help him enjoy and make him happy, and then we become happy. And we do this service out of love. So also, I think Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, oh yeah, he talks about the word karsati, which is struggling or grappling hard. And it's not that we are just struggling, have been struggling in this lifetime. We have been going through this millions and millions and millions of lifetimes, thinking each time that we're going to get what we want out of this material world, whatever we desire, and that's going to make us happy. Whatever it is, whether it's, like fame or material wealth. I mean, you see poor people and rich people alike, they're both unhappy. Whether one is poor or rich, the situation, the person with the money may be able to satisfy his senses to the nth degree, but how much can he do that? Too much pizza and, you have to throw up. Or, we can see some of the ramifications of, freedom in sex life, how there's so many diseases that are going around and so many unwanted children and HIVs and so many things. There's always a consequence to this thinking that we're going to enjoy on any level. Of course, Krishna says in the Bhagavad-Gita, he's sex life, living by religious principles. And then also, I was remembering my sisters live in Las Vegas. I don't know if you know, that's a place in the United States, Las Vegas, Nevada. Las Vegas itself is just a whole city full of gambling halls. Mostly, and prostitution, of course, because with gambling come prostitution and drinking. All of those are there. And what I read about in the gambling halls is that once you get in there, there's no windows. So they capture the people in the hall, and those who are addicted to gambling, they keep thinking, just one more time. Let me try pulling this just one more time. They have these machines, and if you get 3 in a row of the same image, if you keep putting your money in, you get 3 in a row of the same image, then all this money comes out of the machine. You hit the jackpot. But how many, are getting that actually? Maybe 1 out of 500 or 1,000 at the most. But they capture the people's minds because that's where their mind took them, thinking, I'm going to get some money, I'm going to get rich, I'm going to, go home with a lot of money, So we can see that all of this, there's nothing here but distress, and also thinking that we're the controllers, we're the enjoyers. We can see, so many famous people have come and gone. Napoleon, Alexander the Great. And one particular person I thought of, because I was there during that era, is Muhammad Ali. At the time, he was called Cassius Clay. And everybody loved him because he was always saying, I'm the greatest, I'm the greatest, I'm the greatest. That was his mantra. He was a boxer. He was a fighter. And he was always saying, I'm the greatest, and he always won. But what happened to him as he got older? He got Parkinson's disease, and he had so much money. But he told my Guru Maharaj that, I'm having such a difficult time because people just come to me because they want part of the money, they want part of the wealth. So this is what happens, in material life. You cannot, the only way you can succeed in this life is to surrender to Krishna and be under Krishna's control. You have 2 choices, Maya or Krishna. That's the only 2 choices. So the problem is we want to enjoy without Krishna. That's why we came here. We were thinking, why should Krishna be the center? I wanna be the center. I want to enjoy. I want to enjoy the butter. I want the gopis to pay attention to me. I want this. I want that. So the minute we thought that, bloop, here we are. And so we have this demented thinking, and demented meaning a state of madness, a state of serious mental deterioration. And if we see in this world, there's so much mental sicknesses, so much depression, because they also, I don't know if anybody's heard of this particular disease. It's called, there's so many. But one I remember, one time I looked at a program that was talking about this particular sickness. It's called hoarding. You have this sickness of always buying. And they have a room, and they just put all the stuff they buy, they put it in this room. And the stuff that's in their room, even in this lifetime, they could never use any of it. They would never go through all of it. But it's called hoarding, because they have a sickness thinking, this is going to make me secure. Just let me have a room full of stuff, and I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be happy, a room full of stuff. And then I remember one devotee gave a class, and he mentioned this. There was this leader in the Philippines. Her name was Imelda. I forget the last name. And after, I think they had a coup there. Either she left her body naturally, or she was killed by the persons who were, performing the coup. And she had in her closet about 20 or 30,000 pair of shoes. Now, this is kind of sick. It's sick. They don't know what to do with the money because they're trying to find happiness, and it's not in the money. No. So we've been given bodies according to how we want to enjoy. And it is said in the text that due to conditioned life, they're struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. And so as stated in Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 2, text 55, these desires for sense gratification are concocted by the mind. The mind creates what I was calling a virtual reality. People, I don't know how this works, some kind of virtual, I don't know if you put on glasses or whatever you do to get into some space where you're in control and you create whatever situation you want. So this is the mind. It gives the conditioned soul this picture of how I want to enjoy, how I want things to be, or how I plan to make my enjoyment, So because the living soul has these desires, then the mind provides the images for these desires. And then we're contemplating. And we know from that we have thinking. First we think about it, and then we start feeling it. And then once you get to the willing stage, then you want to put it into action, So we can either make the mind our enemy, or we can make it our friend, So we should accept that this world is a miserable place, and there's no place for gentle men or gentle women. And it's called Dukhalema Sasvatam. There's no happiness. We'll never be happy here. Prabhupada says we'll never be happy here. And besides I was saying before, besides the miseries that come anyway, being in the material world, we ourselves are adding to the miseries. We're using so many things and destroying the planet because we're over-consuming. We're greedy. The general populace in the material world, they're consumers. They're being programmed. You need this to be happy. You need that to be happy. There's so many things. Even people are not happy with their bodies. They have to make themselves last longer. They get all kind of operations, eye lift, chin lift, stomach lift, sucked out fat. So many stupid things that are happening that for us, as we're trying to be devotees, doesn't make any sense. So that's why we are here to bring light into the world and to the people who are living in darkness and don't know they're living in darkness and think that they're happy. And so Krishna, and we should just understand, Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. Bhoktaram yagnatapasham sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam yatva man santim richate. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material existence. And Prabhupada explained, this comes from the chapter 5, text 29, and Prabhupada says in the purport that this is the peace formula. Just recognize who is the supreme controller and serve under him. So, and also he's so kind just to attract us because we've misused our minute independence. He comes into this world and performs all his pastimes, his activities, and leelas just to attract our mind. So we need to be reading it every day. We need to be hearing about his pastimes every day to put it into our minds that this is the highest. This is where we want to go. This is what we want to experience. Actually one day I was chanting, and then this thought came to me that he shows his loving nature even despite our reluctance to surrender to him fully. He doesn't need us, really. He has everything, but he wants us. But we need him, but we don't want him. So we should cultivate deeply the desire to enter into that divine life, accepting Krishna's supreme position and our part as his eternal servitors. Esa brahmi stita partha nainam papya vimudyati sthitvaisham antakalepi brahma nirvanam rachati. That is the way of the spiritual and godly life, after attaining which a man is not bewildered. If one is thus situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God. And I want to I'll conclude by reading some of that purport. It's Bhagavad-Gita 272. That's the last verse. Is it 272? Yes. He says here that one can attain Krishna consciousness or divine life at once, within a second. Or one may not attain such a state of life even after millions of births. It is only a matter of understanding and accepting the fact. Then I'll skip down. There was something else I wanted to read about before ending this life, if one fortunately becomes Krishna conscious, he at once attains the stage of Brahma Nirvana. There is no difference between the kingdom of God and the devotional service of the Lord. Since both of them are on the absolute plane, to be engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord is to have attained the spiritual kingdom. In the material world, there are activities of sense gratification, whereas in the spiritual world, there are activities of Krishna consciousness. Attainment of Krishna consciousness, even during this life, is immediate attainment of Brahman, and one who is situated in Krishna consciousness has certainly already entered into the kingdom of God. Thank you so much. So I'll end here. Open for comments, questions, criticisms, additions. The microphone. for this, Prabhu? Hare Krishna.
Initially in this chapter, in this book, Prabhupada is explaining that Prabhupada explaining explanation of Prabhupada that how we should be advancing in the spiritual life.
Advancing in?
Spiritual life.
Yes.
So when we are associating with devotees and chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna
Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
So this is helping us. But still, we are in doubts. We are in doubts that how we can come out from there. Can you explain something?
I remember I went to a Prabhupada disciples. I went to her, Vishaka, and she was talking about doubts. We should speak with a senior devotee about our doubts, or we should to ask our spiritual master if he's still in his body about our doubts. There's so many, if we have association of the devotees and we take advantage of their association and ask questions, especially the ones who are more advanced, they can help us because I'm sure they've had those doubts as well. Anyone want to add to that?
Sometimes our Guru Maharaj, we are very busy, we are very long time. Sometimes devotees, they don't have time. So how can we
There's
the person who is knowing all the things?
Guru, Sastra, Sadhu. Guru, Sastra, Sadhu. We have all three to help us with our doubts. But certainly there must be one senior person who's willing to give you the time. I've found them to be very merciful. If we say, I need help, I'm having some doubts, I just went to one person because I had a doubt. See, he's a senior devotee. And he helped me very much about my doubt. So there is a way to get our doubts answered.
But if we not clear doubts, what can we do if the doubts are not clear?
If the doubts are not cleared?
If I ask you something and if you cannot clear my doubt, then what should I do? The doubts are not clear.
What about in your reading? Or what about, it seems that we want to maintain the doubt. If we can't find anyone, the guru or sastra or sadhu, to answer our doubt. There is. There's so many advanced devotees. There is someone who can answer our doubts. If we go through the process that's outlined in the scriptures. That's why it's outlined.
I find only Prabhupada can clear the doubts. He's clearing the doubts by reading and listening his lectures. He's clearing.
There you go.
All the others, when I ask someone, they cannot clear. When I listen to Prabhupada, I feel that.
Okay, so you found your sadhu. Okay, because Prabhupada in his books is speaking to us. So definitely it's there. Any other questions?
No question. I have some comments.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
I'd like to read one more which you said about the Parvati Mataji incident when you went to see her. So I'd like to read my Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Jai Pataka Swami Maharaj. Recently he got surgery in Chennai hospital, and anesthesia was given, and he was supposed to be unconscious until 3 hours after the surgery finished. Once he brought out in the recovery room from the operation theatre, the secretary saw that he was unconscious, but still he was chanting.
Yes.
Of course, he is elevated.
He's elevated, but yes. Yes.
But this is an example that the soul is how much strong to the attached with the Lord.
Yes, and especially him.
Yes, yes.
Especially. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any other? Thank you so much for coming to the Bhagavad-Gita class. Hare Krishna.